Okay, next up, Raiders-Bengals. Bengals favored by 3, over under 46. This is a who do you hate less game for me. Like there's no redeeming qualities about either one of them, except some random players here and there, like Joe Mixon or whoever. Two decent games in a row for the Raiders. They had a close loss to Kansas City at home, and they beat the Steelers. It's nice. However, on the road, the only game they won is that game where the Cardinals collapsed late. So they won at Arizona, which is nothing really to brag about. Bengals, on the other hand, they've lost 5 straight. They're playing with a backup quarterback, Jeff Driscoll. They've lost 7 out of 8. I mean, the Bengals are going to – I mean, last week Joe Mixon got 31 touches. I mean, this is going to be all Joe Mixon for the Bengals. That's all they're going to do.
Yeah, that's what they should have been doing all along, it feels like.
Yeah.
I guess one thing you can say about the Bengals is they showed some signs of life last week against the Chargers, and we saw obviously what the Chargers did last night. So they have to get that came close. They've still lost 5 in a row, and they've lost 6 of their last or 7 or last 8, I guess. But they're at home. If this game was in Oakland, it may be a different story. But I'm still not sure the Bengals are that bad, or they're going to lose to the Raiders at home. I mean, they're bad, but I just don't see them being that bad. So I think that's more than anything is why I'm going with Cincinnati here at -3. But I'm also not 100% confident either.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You never want to get too confident in a bad team, like I was last week with the Bills against the Jets.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It happens, and I do this because I do fantasy football too. I talk to people about, you should play this defense because they're playing against the worst quarterback in the league, and then the game ends and it's 27-24. You go, oh right, the defense is bad. I forgot. The matchup's great, but the actual defense is not good. Same here. You don't want to get too confident about a bad team. With that said, Bengals for me, for sure.
What do you think the Raiders? Let's talk about the Raiders for a second, just where they stand.
Mm-hmm.
They've had a couple of good games. They've shown a little bit of sign of life. Beating the Steelers that was fairly impressive. That was fine. Now they fire Reggie McKenzie. Is Jon Gruden's team now, no matter what? And he's locked into that long contract, expensive contract. Do you think the Raiders are going to turn it around at some point? Obviously the Reggie McKenzie thing was going to happen. I think he's done a lot of good for that organization. I don't love that call to fire him, but I guess you have to if you're going to give it all to Jon Gruden. Going on with Jon Gruden, that's what you got to do. I don't know. Where do you think the Raiders stand going into not even next season, next couple of years? What do you think?
I'm not optimistic.
No,
but right now, the trades they made. So they decided at the beginning of the season to rebuild, right? They trade Khalil Mack because they don't want to pay him. They wind up trading Cooper. But the thing is, in the offseason, they traded a 3rd-round pick for Martavis Bryant. So were you rebuilding or not? So that signaled to me some – I don't know if dysfunction is the right word, but, what's the plan? Trading a 3rd-rounder to Martavis Bryant, A, that was an anti-rebuild, and B, it's just bad value for a guy who was a big risk. And if he played well, was, I think, going to become a free agent anyway. So – I'm not sure I'm confident. I guess we're going to find out when they start drafting more. Yeah. What the trade they made. Look, for whatever Amari Cooper is doing in Dallas, the Raiders made a good trade there. Amari Cooper was going to have to get paid next year. And if they didn't want to, that's fine. You can argue now whether he's worth it, but they got a 1st-round pick for a guy in the final year before he's going to have to get paid a lot of money. That's good. That's good value for a team that's rebuilding. The Khalil Mack trade, maybe. Some guys maybe you got to pay.
Some guys you
got more. I don't know. So I don't know. I'm not optimistic about that thing working out, but I guess the players they start to draft with all that draft capital they've gotten in return are going to show us whether I'm right or wrong.
I really don't like the Khalil Mack trade still. I think he's he's a top 5 player. You just don't get rid of top 5 players. No matter who you draft, you're not going to get that value back for a long time, if ever. And what Amari Cooper's done in Dallas, it's I understand you have to pay him next year, but the fact he's done really well in Dallas leaves it, under a coach who's not very well respected, Jason Garrett. And you wonder, they can coach him up in Dallas. Maybe it's a better system for him, but Maybe they could do that in Oakland. Maybe that just kind of reflects poorly on their coaching staff, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, but it wasn't just this year that he wasn't doing a lot in Oakland.
No, I know. I don't know. I'm looking at Jon Gruden's record as a coach, and it's just not. I mean, he had a couple of really good years. Obviously, won the Super Bowl in 2002 with the Buccaneers, mostly with Tony Dungy's players. He had a little 11-5 year 2005. Other than that, it's been pretty meh. And I don't know. I haven't been impressed with what they've done this year. I'm not sure he's the right guy for them. I don't like and the fact that they locked him in such a long-term contract. That organization is a mess, and it's going to be hard, I think, for them to turn it around in the next couple of years.
Right. And I don't know. I think I always when I see teams hire coaches, I always say, if let's say you really like Jon Gruden when he was younger. I'm always of the opinion I don't want to bring Jon Gruden back. I want to find the next one, But sometimes it works. I mean, it worked with Tom Coughlin with the Giants. Like when the Giants hired him, and I grew up a Giant fan, I'm like, oh, man, I know you did well in Jacksonville, but he's kind of a retread, and he's old, and it worked. So there's more than one way to skin that cat, I guess. But I agree about him either. I know some detractors would say, well, he won with Tony Dungy's guys. I don't know that that's fair or not, but he did well with the Raiders before he left for Tampa the first time. So yeah. I don't know. Like, thing is, I think I could see him being a good coach in this situation. I mean, and whether he's a good coach this year or not, I think it's hard to tell because there's just not a good team. But as far as it being a GM, that's a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that's going to work. Just because he might be a good coach doesn't mean he's a good GM. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's a tough one.
There are not many coaches in history who have been good GMs at the same time. They have coaches. It's a handful of guys, and there's been a lot of guys who've tried doing that. Even the best coaches ever. Like I wrote a book on Sid Gillman a few years ago. He tried being that GM. It didn't work. He was a great coach, a Hall of Fame coach, and it didn't work as a GM.
Right.
It's just a hard thing to do.
Okay. All right. I thought I saw them reference Sid Gillman during the game last night.
I
didn't talk about Don Coryell.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, Gillman was coached when they were in LA. He coached the LA Chargers.
Yep.
What I don't understand, this is a little bit of a side, why he has not gotten an NFL Network a football life. Like, they're doing Tony Romo and they're doing like contemporary guys. Why aren't they doing Sid Gillman, man? I don't know. Because people will flip through the guide and go, "Who's Sid Gillman?" Right. That was the problem. Like with writing a book, it's like I had talked to agents like, "Don't write the book. Nobody knows who Sid Gillman is." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I wrote the book anyway." But they're right. Nobody knows who Sid Gillman is. So like, that's why nobody wanted me to read the book in the first place. Anyway. All right. I got to check that. Now I'm curious. I didn't know you did that. So I read stuff like that. Everybody should buy that book, Sid Gillman book. You can find it on Amazon.com. Excellent. All right. I talked to a lot of people about that. It's a fun read. I mean, I talked to a lot of guys about Sid, and it's a fun read. Sorry, go ahead. No, that's okay. All right. So we both got the Bengals here. Right now, 53% of the experts like the Bengals. It's a toss-up for the fans, 50-50. So there you go.